All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Thank y'all so much for coming over, man. Back on the Grunge channel we are. All right. What Joan Jett's ex-bandmates have spilled about her. Uh-oh. Again, man, shout out to the Grunge channel. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Shout out to all the good humans. Link is always in the description for those who are asking. So we ain't gonna waste no more time. Let's jump right into it.
A shy guitarist with rock goddess talent, or a damaged girl with beef against her bandmates? Joan Jett may be the Runaways' iconic, mysterious frontwoman, but her bandmates have a lot to spill. In her book, a memoir of the Runaways, Cherie Currie told the story of being approached in a club and recruited to audition for a band that was being put together by someone who made her feel like maybe it was a setup of some sort. When she saw Joan Jett at the audition that she felt vastly unprepared for, she wrote that Jett already seemed like a seasoned professional, even as a teenager, writing, "It was weird because back at the club, there had been something so shy and withdrawn about her. But man, when she put that guitar around her neck, you couldn't take your eyes off her. She oozed attitude and charisma. I was very, very intimidated by her and totally drawn to her at the same time." Currie spoke of their first interactions as though Jett had already climbed a few rungs up the ladder of fame. She was well known enough that Currie remembered being starstruck and predicted that she'd go a long way in the business.
That's crazy. At such a young age to possess that power, to have someone just, you know what I mean? When she said she oozed that charisma, that's what it is. That's what it is.
But there was something down to earth about her too. Currie recalled shaking her hand for the first time, adding, "She seemed friendly enough, and her presence relaxed me a little." That intuition proved right on the money. It was at that first audition that Jett and manager Kim Fowley stepped away for a bit and wrote the song that would become one of the Runaways' biggest hits, Cherry Bomb.
Yeah.
It's tempting to think of songwriters and rock stars as being larger than life, and as always having the confidence to put their own thoughts on paper. That might not always be the case though. In 2013, Joan Jett sat down to talk to WNYC Studios. She said that over the little 3 years that the Runaways were together, they were considered, quote, "one of the most magical times in my life." She spoke too about getting started in music and her early career as a songwriter, saying it was easier back then.
Well, we just write about things that happened to ourselves or happened to our friends.
Easier perhaps, but according to Cherie Currie's observations in her memoir, Neon Angel, Jett wasn't always a confident songwriter. Even as manager Kim Fowley hurled bizarrely creative verbal abuse at the girls on a regular basis, he helped write lyrics. The then 15-year-old Currie was observant enough to know that he only wanted a piece of the royalties though, and he got it. Currie wrote the reason he got what he wanted was because Jett felt she couldn't do it on her own. Writing, "Looking back, it was obvious that Joan didn't need Kim to help her write, but she was as young and insecure as the rest of us, and Kim really made us all feel that we needed him." In 2000, the Runaways' Sandy West and Cherie Currie sat down for an interview with Backfire, and it was, to be short, an enlightening experience. Although the band was wildly popular, they also burned bright and self-destructed in a fairly short time frame.
It's crazy, man. Looking at this photo right here. For those of you who may know, like that show I'm watching called Yellow Jackets. That's what that look like them right there. If you know the show that I'm talking about, you'll know exactly what I mean. Dang.
By the time of the interview, rumors of a reunion had been brewing for some time, and it was Lita Ford who had vocally condemned Joan Jett for her apparent unwillingness to put the band back together. West and Currie, however, had different takes on things.
I was always really afraid of Lita.
Yeah.
Like
I was.
Lita Ford.
Yeah. But she was really tough.
They claimed that Ford had set the reunion up to be a failure. Ford arranged to call Jett to work out the logistics of a potential million.
She looked like Stevie Nicks. Wow.
$1 record deal immediately after Jett would be getting off an unimaginably long international flight. When an exhausted Jett wasn't feeling the conversation, Ford threw a fit, and Currie said the whole thing fell through. She continued, explaining that it fell through after that too, with Ford being the one to refuse behind the scenes, explaining to Backfire, "Lita's been lying to people, blaming everything on Joan. Joan's never been the bad guy in this. She's always been the supportive one. There's something wrong with Lita. She's unstable." By the time 2018 rolled around, it hadn't gone unnoticed that a 40th anniversary for the Runaways was fast approaching.
2018.
What better time would there be to bury the hatchet? Unfortunately for fans, Lita Ford made it quite clear that wasn't going to happen. The reason? To Ford, it was simple. The reason, as she told the Daily Mail, was Joan Jett. Ford was at an event in Las Vegas when she was asked about the potential reunion, and her response didn't leave much room for interpretation. As she said, Joan Jett is very much in Joan Jett land, I guess you could say. Will she ever come out of Joan Jett land? I don't think so. I think her manager controls that, and it's really up to him and her. She wasn't finished either, and claimed that Jett had become so beholden to her longtime manager that he had even joined them at dinner, and that his interference led to her denying the possibility of a reunion.
Man.
She did hint, though, at the fact that in order for there to be a reunion at all, there were a lot of behind-the-scenes conflicts that would need to be put aside. Still, did she see Jett and her fellow pioneering bandmates as family, despite the conflict? Maybe her answer to the Daily Mail will explain things, as she admitted. No, we don't feel that way about each other at all.
With the Daisy Dukes song, I want look at them shorts. Sheesh. Well, they riding up that thing, ain't they?
I don't feel that way about the rest of the girls. We're just better off living our separate lives. Lita Ford's memoir, Living Like a Runaway, doesn't back down from the perhaps inevitable conflict that happened as being part of the Runaways. Think about it. When a group of teenage girls are plucked from obscurity, put on stage, and have a meteoric rise through what was still a male-dominated industry, it has to be rough.
When we first started, a bunch of girls, Joan Jett was in the Runaways. It was pretty nuts, you know.
Although it's clear that she's never been on the best of terms with Joan Jett, she wrote candidly about a terrifying night when she discovered even if they weren't friends, they still had each other's backs. The Runaways were on tour in Japan, and Ford wrote that it was their final show when she tripped and fell down a flight of stairs.
Dang.
Afterward, she hooked up with a man from Texas who gave her some pills, and when she woke up, she discovered she was hemorrhaging blood. Jett and Cherie Curry went to her room and left when they felt like there was nothing else to be done. The bleeding didn't stop though, and Ford was rushed to the hospital. She said that she never really found out what had happened, but recalled waking up in the hospital. She wrote of the experience saying, "I saw Joan asleep in a chair next to my bed. It was weird because Joan and I never really hung out together, but the instant I saw her sitting at my bedside table in the hospital, I felt a tremendous respect for her. The Runaways were never a team, but that said a lot to me." It was 2004 that saw the release of Edgeplay, a film about the Runaways. The documentary
Edgeplay.
featured interviews with members of the Runaways, sans Joan Jett. And here's the weird thing, although it was written and directed by Victory Tischler Blue, better known as the Runaways' bassist Vicky Blue, there was no music from the actual band in the documentary. Why? Jett had refused to sign off on the rights to it. Tischler Blue sat down to talk to Ultimate Guitar about the release of the documentary and the challenges that came with filming it. She shared that she had already put together the film that she wanted, piecing together clips of live performances and behind-the-scenes footage to create something that, as she described, was all about the spirit of the band, the spirit of 5 teenage girls realizing their dream. When Jett refused to get on board, Tischler Blue had to start from scratch. Tischler Blue reminisced about the experience, saying, "It has been really weird and perplexing to everybody." At the same time, she made it clear that she wasn't sure what had happened and was baffled by the fact that Jett had gotten on board with another film that had considerable overlap with hers. That said, Tischler Blue said that there was one thing that she absolutely felt comfortable saying on Jett's behalf, and that was a statement regarding the death of drummer Sandy West, adding, "Sandy's heart was pure. She just wanted to play music."
And I was going to ask, are all of them still alive? When they mentioned them having a reunion, I was just wondering if all of them were. I'm trying to think how old they are now. They might have said it. I might have missed it.
And that was it, really. Jackie Fox was 15 years old when she met Kim Fowley and was recruited to become a member of the Runaways. That was in 1975, and it took her 40 years to tell a terrible story to the Huffington Post. He played with scores of others as well, and told Music Radar that the only unfortunate thing about his time with the Blackhearts was that Joan Jett overshadowed everyone else, even though she didn't mean to. Bird said that she was super open to the rest of the band's suggestions, and even though the media invariably put the spotlight on her, he said that she never acted like she was the one in charge, or that hers was the only opinion that mattered though. He stressed that there were no hard feelings leading to his departure, and that she hadn't held it against him, adding, "I did bump into her 2 years ago. We hugged. He had gotten his own publishing deal, and he'd played the same songs often enough. It wasn't all fun and games though, and he told Guitar Player that he just couldn't keep up with the grueling pace she set. Between touring and recording, he'd had enough, but not in a bad way. For him, it's a memorable experience whenever he hears himself playing guitar on the most iconic version of I Love Rock and Roll, adding, "I walk into a store and I hear that song. It's like, how blessed am I? It doesn't get cooler than that." Given the young age that Joan Jett was when she got her start on stage, it's fitting that one of the first members of the Blackhearts was just 15 years old when he started playing alongside her in her new band. That was Gary Moss, who changed his name to Gary Ryan for his time on stage. He told the Pocono Record that he called it quits in 1986 after 7 years with the group. Why? The traveling and the touring just got to be too much, so he ended up opting for the quiet life, getting married and becoming a teacher. Despite his time off music, he never forgot how to play. So when he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Jett, he was ready and waiting. Moss had stayed in touch with Jett in the decade since leaving the band and told the Digital Journal that he had nothing but good memories and good things to say about her, adding, "Joan and I were very close and got along very well. Those first few years were hard work. Don't get me wrong. We were living and playing on the road relentlessly, just being a band. It still never really felt like work to me. But what was it like to play with Joan? It was awesome." AC Slade joined Joan Jett in the Blackhearts later in the game, and in 2015, he stepped away from the band to go solo. Surprising? Yes and no. In an interview for Icon vs. Icon, Slade credited Jett with handing him the most impactful experience of his career. He also acknowledged that it was a pretty sweet gig, and that it was nice just being able to show up and play, as the experience opened a ton of doors for him. While he was grateful for that, there was also no denying the fact that Jett was a force to be reckoned with. He talked to Joe Daly about his decision to leave the Blackhearts and said that while he didn't have anything bad to say about her, he also acknowledged the fact that the group was a deeply personal thing for her. That meant that while there were some outside influences, it was her group at the end of the day. He explained it, saying, "I didn't take it personally, as far as her not wanting to use songs he wrote, because I can understand that. The band's called Joan Jett. I joined Joan Jett in the Blackhearts. When he announced that he was going to release his own work and found there was a demand for it, he simply decided that while it was great to be a part of her thing, he needed to do his thing."
Hey, I tell you, man, people be going through so much. It's so much that we don't know. And I feel like this video might be watered down, like as far as stuff they reported on, because people didn't want to give like the full story. And it's a part of this I'm gonna have to chop out of here just because it get a little crazy on YouTube when you mention certain words. But I didn't know any of this. I know she does seem like a diva though, Joan Jett. I get it though. When you're in a band, like a group, there's always going to be someone that stands out the most. And that's who a lot of people, fans and producers and stuff, they kind of gravitate to. You know, always talk about sports. It's like you get a certain player and you build around them, but that's your star player right there. It's up to them, the star player, to pretty much, you know, talk about how they want the band to be ran. Like as far as like the guy right here, how he was saying she wouldn't, the AC Slade guy she wouldn't want to use any of the music he wrote. And he's like, well, you know, I need to do my own thing. I got all this stuff in my head, all these songs that I want to get out, but I do realize I joined Joan Jett, but I got to do my own thing. And that's good. That's good because the brother has an identity. He's not just there just doing follow the leader. You know what I mean? I love when people do that. It's like, hey, no hard feelings, but I need to do my own thing, you know? But it was a lot of drama with them. Joan Jett seemed to like really love music, but I feel like the producers and everybody were kind of like I'm pretty sure it was a lot of stuff going on, and you know, people be doing threats and all. It's a lot. It's a lot, especially when everybody can see it. And as soon as they try to speak about it, things happen. That's going to do it. Again, appreciate you guys coming over and watching. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. Again, shout out to the Grunge channel for the upload. Make sure you guys are subscribed and check out their channel, man. They got a lot of great videos over there. So that's going to do it. Peace out.